climate change.
Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. My question...
Order. Senator Canavan, I'm sorry, please resume your seat. Order on my right. Senator Canavan has the right to ask his question in silence. Senator Canavan, please start again.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm glad I inspire such a reaction. My question is to the Minister for Industry and Innovation, Senator Ayres. There are reports this morning that the Tomago aluminium smelter, which supports around 1,000 jobs in your home state of New South Wales, is looking at potential closure. Tomago CEO Jerome Dozzle laid the blame on energy costs, saying that, and I quote, "Unfortunately, all market proposals received so far show future energy prices are not commercially viable." The government says that renewable energy is cheaper, and it says that it's building lots of renewables for the future. If that is the case, why can't Tomago get an energy price in the future that is affordable?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Ayres.
Well, I can confirm that this morning management at the Tomago facility began a process of consulting with the around 1,400 workers at that facility about the potential of that facility closing in 2028. And that is, having had some experience in these kind of events, I can tell you that that is a very difficult day indeed, and there are going to be challenging days and weeks and months. What I wouldn't do, Senator Ruston, is disrespect workers who are having a tough day in Tomago with the sort of hyper-partisanship that your show's engaged in. If you,
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Order. I sat Senator Canavan down and gave him the privilege of starting his question again because there was too much noise on the right, and I demanded that his question be heard in silence. And the same applies to those of you on the left. The minister is responding to the question, and I ask for silence. Minister Ayres.
And of course, as you would imagine, this government has been engaged in discussions with the Government of New South Wales and the owners of that facility and the trade unions engaged in that facility over the future of that facility for some time. And we will continue that work over the coming month and months as we work with that facility. It's also the case that more broadly across the aluminium sector in Queensland and in Tasmania, facilities owned by Rio Tinto as a part owner of the Tomago facility are working through their future power purchasing agreements. In Queensland, the Gladstone facility has been successfully engaged in investment and underwriting solar and wind projects in Queensland, and I'm grateful for the assistance of the Government of Queensland in supporting that work. There is a competition.
Senator Canavan, first supplementary.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Minister, last week the CEO of James Strong, who are a metals manufacturing business in Taree, also in your home state, said that the annual power price for our factory has almost doubled in 4 years. We are decommissioning our baseload power of coal and gas. We are going to renewables, and the cost is spiking. That's what he said. He's a business owner. He's on the front lines. Minister, if renewable energy is cheaper, why is it causing the cost of energy to spike for New South Wales manufacturing businesses?
Your time for asking has expired. Minister Ayres.
Well, Senator Canavan, you moved off the situation in Tomago pretty quickly. You moved off it pretty quickly because the facts at that facility don't support your argument. They don't support your argument. And you would have thought that you'd give it a few minutes, for workers to adjust to this thing, like returning like a sort of koala to his favourite tree.
Right, let's get one thing straight from the jump. The whole net zero by 2050 dream that politicians keep waving around like it's the holy grail of climate salvation, it's not just cracking under pressure, mate. It's falling apart faster than a rusted hillock on a bush track. And now, with factories shutting down, workers on the edge, and power bills climbing higher than a kangaroo on Red Bull, the question isn't whether the plan's working, it's whether there's anything left to defend it all. Before we dive into this net zero disaster they can't defend, smash that like button if you're sick of paying for their green fantasy. Subscribe and grab the Not Far Right Just Right shirt, links in the description. Picture it, the Australian Senate chamber. Polished wood, polite chaos, and a pack of pollies throwing parliamentary shade like schoolkids arguing over who forgot to bring the footy. Senator Matt Canavan stands up, and whether you like the bloke or not, at least he's asking the question every working Aussie is wondering. Why the bloody hell are our energy costs going through the roof if renewables are meant to be cheaper? Straight away, you could feel the tension in the room. Canavan's not mucking around. He brings up the Tomago aluminium smelter in New South Wales. 1,000 jobs, mate. Real people, real families. The CEO, Jerome Duzzle, isn't talking in riddles either. He's blunt. All market proposals show future energy prices are not commercially viable. Translation? We can't afford to keep the lights on. That's not some anti-green slogan cooked up by talkback radio. That's the guy running one of the most energy-hungry industries in the country waving a giant red flag. And here's where the farce starts. The minister, Tony Ayres, all polished and polite, steps up with the usual government spin about ongoing discussions and policy consistency. You know the type. The word salad that sounds thoughtful until you realize it means absolutely nothing. Ayres confirms that, the smelter is consulting with 1,400 workers about potential closure by 2028, a whole community staring down the barrel. But instead of addressing the core issue, that power costs are smashing manufacturing, he starts scolding Canavan for hyperpartisanship. Because apparently, it's rude to point out when policy doesn't work. The chamber's roaring, the president's calling for order, and the energy debate, like the grid itself, is flickering in and out of control. And here's the rub. The government loves to brag about renewables being cheaper. You've heard it all before. Wind and solar are the future. The transition will create jobs. We're modernizing the grid. But none of that explains why Aussie factories are shutting their doors, why aluminium smelters are considering packing up, or why businesses like James Strong and Taree are getting walloped with doubled power bills. The CEO there said it himself. The annual power price for our factory has almost doubled in 4 years. That's not a glitch, that's a pattern. So, Canavan doubles down. If renewable energy is cheaper, why is everything costing more? And that, right there, is the million-dollar question that not one minister in Canberra seems capable of answering. Instead, Ayres starts sidestepping like a roo avoiding headlights. He says companies like Rio Tinto, who co-own Tomago, can't find viable energy contracts, whether coal or renewables. Apparently, there's competition for green energy. Translation: everyone's scrambling for a piece of the same expensive, unreliable pie. Now, you've got to love how the government spins this. When coal power's expensive, they say it's outdated. When renewables are expensive, they say it's because demand is high. There's always a reason, always an excuse, and never a solution that helps the bloke working a shift at Tomago or the factory owner in Taree just trying to keep the lights on. And that's where this net zero push turns from idealism into idiocy. See, it's not that Aussies don't care about the environment, we do. We love our land, our coasts, our clean air. But the idea that we can just RIP out baseload power, toss a few wind turbines on the horizon, and expect the economy to hum along like nothing's changed, that's fantasy stuff. It's the kind of thinking that gets drafted in air-conditioned offices in Canberra, not on factory floors in the Hunter or farms out west. Ayres tries to get philosophical at one point. He says there are two trajectories, one orderly, one disorderly. You can almost hear the speechwriter grinning. But here's the thing. When you're telling thousands of workers that their jobs might disappear because energy's too pricey, there's nothing orderly about it. It's chaos disguised as policy. It's ideology running headfirst into reality. The whole exchange feels like a microcosm of the bigger debate, the city versus the country, idealism versus pragmatism, slogans versus sweat. On one side, you've got politicians promising green glory, patting themselves on the back for doing something about climate change. On the other, you've got blokes and Sheilas just trying to pay the bills, wondering how cheaper renewables somehow made everything more expensive. Now, here's where it gets global. Across the Pacific, Donald Trump, yes, now the 47th President of the United States, is tearing into the same kind of policies. He's calling out what he calls the green scam, saying it kills jobs, strangles industry, and hands economic control to China. Whether you like Trump or not, the timing's uncanny. While America shifts gears, Australia's doubling down on a strategy that's clearly cracking under its own weight. And let's be honest, when it comes to energy, Australia doesn't have the luxury of getting it wrong. We're not a massive economy that can just absorb the blow. We're a nation built on resources, mining, manufacturing, agriculture. Knock those pillars out, and the whole structure starts to wobble. That's exactly what this net zero obsession is doing, tearing down the engines of productivity and replacing them with ideology and wishful thinking. You can almost hear the bureaucrats insisting that short-term pain will lead to long-term gain. But that line's getting old. Because the pain isn't short-term anymore, it's structural. It's factories closing, investments drying up, young tradies seeing fewer apprenticeships, and regional towns losing their heartbeat. You can't power a country on promises and PowerPoint slides. Someone's got to actually build, maintain, and afford the system, and right now, that system's breaking. Meanwhile, the government's too busy attacking imported ideology, as Ayres calls it, to notice that the imported ideology they're peddling is their own. The net zero blueprint isn't some homegrown Aussie innovation. It's a global script written by elites who wouldn't know what it's like to get an electricity bill over $1,000. And here we are, copying it word for word, even as the cracks start to show. You've got to laugh, or else you'd cry, at how disconnected it's become. They talk about modernizing the grid. But what does that even mean when Tomago can't afford to stay open? They say investment in renewables. But who's paying for it? You are. Every time you open your power bill, every time your local business struggles to keep the lights on, you're footing the bill for a grand experiment that's already failing. This isn't progress. It's self-destruction dressed up as virtue. And it's spreading quietly, steadily, through every corner of the economy. The energy crisis isn't just about numbers and kilowatts. It's about sovereignty, security, and survival. When we can't produce affordable energy, we can't compete. And when we can't compete, we lose jobs, industries, and independence. It's that simple. Back in the Senate, you can feel the frustration boiling over. Canavan's standing there, trying to get a straight answer, while the minister keeps circling like a drone stuck in hover mode. The president's calling for order, the chamber's a mess, and all you can think is, this is the best we've got? These are the people steering the ship while industries sink beneath them? The truth is, they can't defend net zero because the damage is already here. They can't defend a policy that claims to be saving the planet while it's torching jobs and driving manufacturing offshore. They can't defend a strategy that makes Australians poorer while pretending it's making the earth cleaner. And they definitely can't defend it when every day more evidence piles up showing that the transition isn't smooth or orderly. It's a slow-motion train wreck. But here's the kicker. Instead of facing it, they double down. More subsidies, more targets, more slogans. Because in politics, admitting failure is worse than fixing it. And so the cycle continues, higher costs, fewer industries, and ministers patting themselves on the back for bold leadership, while the rest of the country pays for their fantasy. The real leadership? It's in the workers still showing up at Tomago, wondering if their jobs will exist in 3 years. It's in the small business owners in Taree, staring down bills they can barely pay. It's in the people saying, hang on, we want cleaner energy, but not like this. That's not denial. That's common sense. Something in short supply in Canberra these days. So where does that leave us? Right in the middle of a national identity crisis. Do we keep chasing net zero no matter the cost, or do we start talking about balance, genuine, practical balance? Because if we keep pretending that shutting down what works will magically make what doesn't work viable, we're in for a rude awakening. You can almost picture the next headline. Another manufacturing giant closes as energy crisis deepens. And when that happens, the same politicians will stand up, nod solemnly, and say it's all part of the transition. But transitions end, mate. And what's waiting on the other side of this one doesn't look like prosperity, it looks like decline. The government can't defend net zero because it's not defensible. The evidence is written across factory gates, in every sky-high power bill, and in every town wondering what the hell happened to common sense. They can't spin it, they can't excuse it, and they sure as hell can't hide it much longer. Because when the lights start flickering, literally and politically, the Australian people will remember who pulled the plug. And when that day comes, all the speeches, slogans, and shiny policy papers won't mean a thing. Because you can't defend destruction, you can only stop it. Smash that like button if you reckon Australia deserves better judgment. Subscribe and grab the Not Far Right, Just Right shirt, links in the description. Keep your eyes open and your politicians on a short leash, mate.